They were called imitators, wannabes, a carbon copy of a global phenomenon transplanted onto Filipino soil. They were trained under a rigorous system designed to produce idols, but in the process, they almost lost themselves. They were criticized, dismissed, and on the verge of disappearing entirely. But what happens when artists decide to break the mold? What happens when they stop echoing a formula and start composing their own anthem? This is the story of how 5 young men from the Philippines went from being challenged for their originality to defining the very sound of a new generation. This is the transformation of SB19. Imagine this: a group of trainees pushed to their absolute limits, debuting with a song that barely makes a ripple. Imagine them releasing a second single, pouring every last bit of hope into it, only for it to be met with the same deafening silence. They're out of money, out of morale, and out of time. They're ready to quit, to let the dream dissolve into just another painful memory. Now, picture this: the same group, years later, commanding global stages. Their music, a complex, genre-bending fusion of hip-hop, rock, and balladry, rich with Filipino culture and unflinching social commentary, is celebrated worldwide. They aren't just artists. They're the CEOs of their own company, shaping the future of their industry. This isn't a fictional drama. This is the real, turbulent, and ultimately triumphant journey of SB19. And to understand how they achieved this monumental shift, we have to go back to the beginning, to the borrowed blueprint that both built them and nearly broke them. In 2018, the story of SB19 began not in a local music studio, but within a framework imported from South Korea. They were formed under Show BT Philippines, a subsidiary of a Korean entertainment company aiming to localize the K-pop idol training system. This wasn't a casual mentorship, it was a crucible. Based on the members' own accounts, they were subjected to grueling, marathon training sessions and strict weekly evaluations. The group's eventual leader, Pablo, endured the longest training period of them all. This system was designed to manufacture perfection. Every dance move had to be synchronized, every note pitch perfect, every public appearance flawlessly executed. Their initial concept, from music to styling, was heavily inspired by the K-pop aesthetic that had taken the world by storm. And this immediately created a powerful tension. While the training was undeniably world-class, it also made them an easy target. The moment they stepped into the public eye, they were met with a wave of online skepticism and a damaging label that would follow them: K-pop copycats. This criticism tapped into a deeper cultural conversation in the Philippines about originality in the face of K-pop's dominance. Online comment sections were filled with questions about their identity, and SB19, with their polished, K-pop-inspired visuals, became a focal point for this debate. They were entering the industry inside a borrowed system, and now they faced the monumental task of proving they hadn't lost their Filipino souls in the process. The group officially debuted in October 2018 with their first single, a ballad titled Tila Luha. The song showcased their vocal potential, but it landed with a quiet thud. It drew very little attention, and the members who had sacrificed years for this moment were left disheartened. Adding to the confusion, the music video featured a visual style that some audiences felt distanced the group from a distinctly local identity, fueling the copycat narrative. Undeterred, they pushed forward. Their second single, Go Up, was released in July 2019. This song was everything to them. It was, by their own accounts, their last shot. They had poured their remaining resources and fading hopes into it. And yet, history repeated itself. The song initially failed to gain any significant traction. Viewership was low, their finances were drained, and the dream was rapidly turning into a nightmare. They performed at small mall shows to sparse crowds, It's been said that at times the audience was incredibly small. The years of relentless training, the personal sacrifices, none of it had translated into success. The group was seriously considering disbandment. They had followed the formula, but the formula had failed them. They stood on the precipice, about to become another forgotten name in the music industry. Just as they were ready to give up, something extraordinary happened. A few months after its release, a fan uploaded their Go Up dance practice video to social media. It was a simple video, just 5 young men in a practice room, dancing with a desperate, electrifying energy. There were no flashy sets or high-budget effects, but the raw talent, the razor-sharp synchronization, and the palpable passion were undeniable. And then, it went viral. The video spread like wildfire across Twitter and Facebook, first within the Philippines, and then beyond. People who had never heard of SB19 were suddenly captivated. It wasn't just the technical skill that hooked them, it was the story. News articles began to surface about this Filipino group on the verge of disbandment and their final, desperate song. This narrative of the underdog, of talent shining through against all odds, resonated deeply with a massive audience. Suddenly, media outlets that had been indifferent were now calling. They were invited for television appearances and radio guest spots. The Go Up dance practice video was the spark that ignited a firestorm of public support. It single-handedly saved them from disbandment and gave them what they had been fighting for all along, a platform. It was their chance to reintroduce themselves, not as products of a foreign system, but as Filipino artists with a story to tell. Even with the viral success of Go Up, the Copycat label clung to them. During a press conference, they were hit with pointed questions that interrogated their identity. How are you different from K-pop if you're basically just singing it in Filipino? This line of questioning reflected a struggle to see beyond the surface aesthetics. The pressure was immense. They were caught in a cultural crossfire. On one hand, the K-pop style training was the very reason for their incredible discipline and skill. On the other, it was the source of the most damaging criticism against them. It created an identity crisis they had to solve. Even in their earliest days, however, a key differentiator was already there: their lyrics. From the beginning, their leader Pablo, then known as Sehun, was the primary songwriter, and he wrote in Filipino about their own experiences. In that very press conference where they were grilled about their authenticity, Pablo's answer was firm. They write their own songs based on their own stories, shaped by their own culture. This was the seed of their transformation. They realized the only way to shed the label was to create a sound so unique, so personal, and so deeply Filipino that it couldn't be mistaken for anything else. The viral fame of Go Up gave SB19 a lifeline, but true artistic evolution comes from within. The turning point was spearheaded by one person, their leader, Pablo. As he took on more of the role of primary songwriter and producer, the group's sound began to transform. The creative process shifted from being company-guided to being driven by the members' own vision. This shift was monumental. Even before this, their 2020 album, Get in the Zone, had already blended pop, R&B, and EDM elements. But their 2021 EP, Pagsibol, which means germination, was a true statement of intent. The lyrics moved away from generic tropes and delved into intensely personal themes. The songs became their weapons against criticism. What was an explosive anthem of defiance, a direct response to their haters? Mapa, a portmanteau of Mama and Papa, was a heartfelt ballad that resonated deeply in the family-centric Filipino culture, becoming a tribute to parents everywhere. Pablo even used Filipino folklore as a metaphor in the song Mana, referencing a mythical creature to speak about detaching from critics while remaining grounded. Pablo's genius as a songwriter is how he makes every member shine. He writes parts that highlight Stell's powerful vocals, Ken's distinct flow, Josh's sharp rap delivery, and Justin's vocal color. This collaborative spirit ensures the music is a true reflection of the group. They were no longer just performing songs. They were telling their own story, forged in Filipino fire. SB19 had found their creative voice, but finding your voice and being allowed to use it are two different things. They were about to face their biggest challenge yet, the fight for their creative freedom. This decision would risk everything they had built. Before we get to that pivotal moment, if you're finding this story as compelling as we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. By 2023, SB19 were no longer underdogs. They were widely hailed as the kings of PPop, with a massive fan base known as 18. Yet, behind the scenes, a crucial tension was building. While they had gained more creative input, they were still operating within their original agency. To fully realize their vision, they needed complete control. This desire for sovereignty led to a monumental decision. SB19 announced they would be self-managed. In the latter half of 2023, they officially launched their own company, 1Z Entertainment, with Pablo stepping in as CEO. This was a massive gamble, leaving the only professional home they had ever known. Their musical manifesto for this new era was the EP Pagtatag, which translates to establishment. Released in June 2023, during this period of transition, the EP was bolder and more diverse than ever. The lead single, Gento, became an international viral hit. Its title is a clever wordplay on ganito, like this, and ginto, gold, symbolizing their journey of being refined through pressure. The song's success, even landing on Billboard's World Digital Song Sales chart, was a powerful validation that betting on themselves was the right move. Their departure from their former agency, however, came with a terrifying complication. A dispute arose over the ownership of the name SB19 itself. For a period, the group had to stop using their own name and logo. Their planned tour dates were canceled due to what was officially termed unforeseen circumstances, sending shockwaves through their fan base. This was the ultimate test. It was no longer just about their sound. It was a literal battle for the right to call themselves SB19. Having fought so hard to redefine what that name meant, they were now at risk of losing it entirely. The months that followed were filled with anxiety. Finally, in December 2023, 1Z Entertainment released an official statement. They had reached an amicable agreement with their former agency. SB19 had secured the official ownership of their name and logo. The 5 men who had built the brand now officially owned it. The victory was total. With the legal battles behind them, 1Z Entertainment launched not just as a management company for SB19, but as a new force in Filipino music. The company's motto is a direct extension of their journey: get you in the zone and break the norm. For them, 1Z is a sanctuary where they can hone their talents without external constraints. Pablo, as CEO, has articulated a vision that extends far beyond SB19, aiming to put Filipino music and culture on the world map. Their stated goals include creating an ecosystem where artists can thrive, learning from their own difficult trainee experiences. They've shared plans to produce new artists with a training curriculum that they hope will be an improved version of what they went through, placing a strong emphasis on mental health and wellness. By forming their own company, SB19 has done something remarkable. They have transformed their personal struggle into a structural solution for future artists. Freed from all constraints, SB19's music under 1Z has become their most audacious and authentic work to date. The SB19 sound is no longer an emerging concept. It is a powerful, defined force. The Pagtatag EP stands as a testament to their entire journey, tackling complex themes with fearless creativity. Tracks on the EP are emotionally layered works of art that reflect a group that is confident in its voice and message. The perception of SB19 has completely shifted. The K-pop Copycat label has been replaced by titles like PPop Kings and Trailblazers. They are recognized not for how they resemble another genre, but for how they have pioneered their own. Their journey from a group created by a system to artists who built their own system is complete. Their sound is now SB19 first, a unique fusion of global influences and a proudly Filipino heart. The story of SB19 is a masterclass in artistic evolution. They began their journey on a path paved by a successful foreign model, a path that brought them both invaluable skills and crushing criticism. They faced commercial failure, public ridicule, and the very real possibility of disbandment, but they didn't quit. Instead, they transformed. They used the pressure not to break, but to refine themselves, like Gento, into something stronger. They found their voice in the lyrics of their own language and the stories of their own lives. They fought for the freedom to use that voice, risking their careers to take control of their art and their identity. And in doing so, they didn't just save themselves. They ignited a movement. From the echoes of K-pop, a distinctly Filipino roar has emerged. A roar of resilience, of authenticity, and of a talent so undeniable it has forced the world to listen. The transformation of SB19 proves that true artistry isn't about fitting into a mold. It's about having the courage to break it and build something new in its place. What part of SB19's transformation inspires you the most? Is it their resilience, their songwriting, or their courage to build their own company? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in the power of Filipino talent, make sure to like this, subscribe for more deep dives, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for watching.